Hi, and welcome back to English Lessons with Stephanie. This is Writing and Vocabulary Lesson 14. Here's our vocabulary for today's lesson. Our first word is a noun, policy. Policy means a rule or custom, something that is ordinarily done somewhere. In the reading we said the U.S. education system is confusing because it is managed by a combination of local and state policies. In our second example, it says it's the company's policy to hire more women. And the third example says, our building policy does not allow pets. So here we have several examples of how policy means some kind of rule. In the other column, I wrote the phrase, a matter of policy, which just means this is kind of a rule that someone might have. Our next two words are private and public. I put these words together because they're opposites. Private is an adjective that means it's owned by regular people or businesses and only available to a few. So anything that is not open to every single person and only allows certain people to use it or to belong is private. The verb form is privatize. That means you make something private. And the adverb form is privately. In the other column, I wrote the private sector, which refers to things that are owned by people and not by the government. So for example, in the United States, healthcare is run by the private sector. That means it's not run by the government. So the opposite of private is public. This means it's owned by the government and it's available to everyone. There is a verb, publicize, but that means more like to advertise something, to tell people about it, than to make it public and available to everyone. The adverb form is publicly, and we can also say the public sector. We also have the phrase in public, which means in a public place, like outside or in a park. So in the reading we said about 90% of American students attend public schools during these years, and the remaining 10% attend private schools. Our second example says this club is privately owned. You have to be a member to enter. And the third example says there is a public restroom in the park. A restroom is a bathroom. So if it's a public restroom, that means anybody can use it. Our next word is institution. Institution is a countable noun that means an organization. That means a group or a place, some kind of organized collection. The adjective form is institutional. And there is a verb form, institutionalize, but it can mean something a little bit different. So in the reading, we said the education system in the United States consists of a mix of public and private institutions. And that's because education in the U.S. can be public schools and private schools. So a school is a type of institution. So in our second example, it says Harvard is one of the oldest educational institutions in the country. Other examples of institutions would be like libraries or banks. These are types of groups and organizations. And the third example shows the adjective form institutional. One of the institutional practices is to encourage student athletics. That means this is a custom by the institution. Next, we have the adjective mandatory. Mandatory means it's required or necessary, so everybody has to do it. In the reading, we said preschool in most states is not mandatory nor covered by the state. That means preschool is not required. You don't have to go. Our second example shows the noun form, mandate. Many places have mask mandates during the pandemic. That means this is required. A mask mandate means everyone must wear a mask. And our third example shows the verb form. The government mandated that all businesses put protective measures in place. So if you mandate something, that means you make it required. And after we use the verb mandate, we can use a noun or a sentence that uses the subjunctive verb. That means the general verb form for all types of subjects. Next, we have the verb cover. Cover means to pay for. Cover has other meanings, but this is the meaning from class 14. In our reading, it said, preschool in most states is not mandatory nor covered by the state. That means the state doesn't pay for it. It's not paid for by the state. The second sentence shows another example of this verb. My phone insurance doesn't cover water damage. That means my insurance won't pay for water damage. If I drop my phone in water, my insurance won't pay for it. And there's a third example of the verb. Could you cover me? I left my wallet at home. This means I'm asking you if you could pay for me because I don't have any money. We also have a noun form, coverage. Coverage is kind of a more formal term, usually used by insurance companies. And the adjective form covered would be just the past participle form of the verb. Like, oh, is this covered? That means, is this paid for? Our next word is kindergarten. Kindergarten is the non-count noun that means the school level before first grade. So in the reading, we said, after preschool comes kindergarten, usually at the age of 5. And this might sound like a strange word because it's a German word. So we don't have a lot of words that look like this in English. And the countable form is kindergartner, which is the child who's in kindergarten. Just like in the last example, most kindergartners attend school for half a day. Our next word is bored. And bored what's up with this? Our next word is board, and board here is a non-count noun that means food and or housing provided by a person or institution. And usually when we talk about board, we're talking about students or renters of some kind. So in the reading, we talked about students who go to boarding school. And so boarding school is a school that you live at while you're going to school. And when we talked about board, we used the phrase room and board. So in the first example, it says this figure includes tuition as well as room and board. In this sentence, we were talking about how much it costs to go to school. So we would pay for tuition, which is our tuition, as well. So in this example, in this sentence, we were talking about school costs. And room and board is one phrase. Room and board means housing and food. But in other cases, boarding could just mean so room and board together means room and food, but boarding itself could mean food, it could mean the house, could mean room also, and it could mean just room and not food. So our second example said 10% attend private schools, some of which may be boarding schools. And then the last example shows board used as a verb. My cousin boarded with us while attending college nearby. That means our cousin lived with us. Our next word is supply. Supply can be a noun or a verb. In the reading, it was used as a noun that means necessary equipment or resources, stuff that you need to use for something. The reading said, while public school is free to attend, students are expected to pay for their own school supplies. So supplies is our plural form. The next example shows the singular form. These plants need a constant supply of water in order to thrive. And the third example shows the verb form. Can you supply me with these answers? That means, can you give me what I need? Our next word is fee. Fee is a countable noun that means a price for services. That means not a product that you buy, but a service. So in the reading, it said, additionally, other activities like sports and arts may involve other fees. It means other costs to do these things. Our second example says parks might have different fees for locals and tourists. So here we're talking about an entrance fee, what you pay to enter a park. And the third example says the hotel charged us an extra cleaning fee because we smoked in the room. And so this is the price you would pay to have your room cleaned. Next, we have the non-count noun tuition. So when we talk about educational costs, how much it costs to go to school, tuition is the price of just the classes, just the teachers, just being in school. Tuition does not mean books, supplies, transportation, uniforms, anything else. It's just the cost of the teaching itself. So in the reading, we talked about a figure that includes tuition as well as room and board. And in our second example, tuition at public colleges is different for in-state and out-of-state students. That means the price that students pay is different if you live in the state or if you live outside of the state. Our next vocabulary word is degree. A degree is a certificate or a document from an educational institution. So our example was in 2019, 36% of Americans over the age of 25 had a bachelor's degree, typically obtained after 4 years in college. So in this chart, I wrote some common types of degrees in the United States. The bachelor's degree is usually a BA or a BS. Master's degrees can be Master of Arts, Master of Science. Those are general kinds of degrees, but there are many other specific kinds. For example, I have a Master's in Education, an MED. Then we have medical degrees, so MD, and doctoral degrees like your PhD. That's if you are studying to get your doctorate. And there are other types of degrees as well, but these are some of the most common types that you would get from colleges and universities. So in the second example, I wrote another use of the word degree. My undergraduate degree is in journalism. So undergraduate degree, that means my college degree. And then the next example says, I'd like to get a degree in business. Our next word is obtain. Obtain is a verb that means to get something. So in the reading, we said, in 2019, 36% of Americans over the age of 25 had a bachelor's degree, typically obtained after 4 years in college. So typically gotten, typically won or procured after 4 years in college. So obtain is just a more formal way of saying get. Where can I obtain more information about this? Or children need to obtain permission from their parents to visit the farm. So these are kinds of things you would say in formal situations. Our next word is major. And major in the reading was a countable noun that means your formal educational focus in college. That means the main thing you are studying. Since I got a degree in education, my major was education. So in the reading it said, in college, students are asked to choose a major to focus on. The second example shows the verb form. My cousin is majoring in economics. And the third example shows the word minor, which is a secondary focus. Your degree will show your major, and in some schools, you can additionally get a secondary certificate of some kind to show that you studied a smaller number of classes in a different subject. So this last example says, I'm going to get a minor in English. So in class 9, we also had major as a vocabulary word, and then it was an adjective to mean big or large. So these two words are related, but in this class vocabulary, major is used as a noun. Our next word is range. Range is an intransitive verb that means to go from one extreme to another. And one extreme to another means from big to small, or from easy to difficult. So it shows one thing very, very much in one direction and one thing very, very much in the opposite direction. So in the reading, we said majors can range from general to much more specific. So general is one direction and specific is the other direction, right? General means large and related to many things, and specific means very narrow and related only to a small number of things. Or in our second example, it says minimum wage in the US ranges from $7.25 to $15 an hour. So minimum wage, minimum means the smallest, and wage means how much money you make per hour. So in the United States, by law, the smallest amount you can pay someone in certain states is $7.25 an hour. That's the lowest. But then the range, the highest minimum wage is $15. So for example, in Washington, D.C., the minimum wage is $15. So you have to pay someone at least $15 an hour. And the last example shows range used as a noun. Her voice has an incredible range. That means her voice can go from really, really high to really, really low. Probably singing, not just talking like that. So in the other column, I wrote that when you use range as a verb, you always have to range from something to something else. So in our examples here, you see ranging from to when it's used as a verb. Our next word is general. We already mentioned the word general, meaning it's related to many things. It's not specific. So when we said measures can range from general to much more specific. The second example says wheat is grown in this general area. So not just right here where I'm standing, but this area around me, larger area. And the last example shows the phrase, in general, I like dogs more than cats. So that means for most dogs or in most situations. Now we have a complete word family here. We have a noun form, generalization. That means that's a statement about a big topic. The verb form generalize also means to say a statement that applies to many things. And then the adverb form, generally. So in the last sentence that says, in general, I like dogs more than cats, you could say, generally, I like dogs more than cats. Or the sentence, I like dogs more than cats, is a generalization, right? It's true most of the time. Or you could say, to generalize, I like dogs more than cats. That's a general idea. Our next word is maintain, which is a transitive verb. And to maintain, it means to keep something at a steady level. That means it's not going to change too much. In the reading, it said, U.S. colleges maintain international appeal for the quality of education, but this quality comes at a price far higher than in most other countries. That means colleges, in general, appeal to international students, and this doesn't change very much. This means that year after year, students continue to like U.S. colleges. Our second example shows the noun form of maintain, which is maintenance. This is a non-countable noun. Maintenance costs for an old car can be high. And so a maintenance cost means how much it costs to keep a car at a steady level, to keep it functioning and running and working properly. And in the last example, my son didn't maintain his interest in the piano for very long. That means his interest level did not stay steady. Maybe he was really interested in the beginning, but after a while, he was no longer interested. He didn't want to play piano anymore, so he couldn't maintain his interest. Our next words are scholarship and grant. These are both nouns and they have similar meanings. They're both amounts of money that are given to someone for a purpose. A scholarship is money that's given for education, and a grant is money that could be for education or for other things, like to start a business or to go on a trip, some kind of travel. So in the reading, we said many students are able to earn money for college through scholarships, grants, or part-time jobs. The next example says there are many types of scholarships available because scholarships could be for athletes, they could be for certain types of people like ethnic minorities, or they could just be based on need for people who come from families who might need some more financial help. And our last example says she received a grant to continue her research. So in this case, grant is money that's given to help someone do research and study something specific. Our next word is debt. Debt is a noun that means something owed, usually money. Our next word is debt. Debt is a noun that means something owed, usually money. Notice that the B in debt is silent, so it's pronounced debt, not debt. In the reading we said many more are forced to take out costly loans to pay for their education or assume a large amount of credit card debt. So credit card debt is the amount of money that you must pay to your credit card company, right? Every time you pay for something, you increase your debt to the credit card company. The second example says student debt is a big problem in the US. That just means the amount of money that students owe, students must pay. And in the last example, we see the adjective form indebted. Because he helped me to get a job, I feel indebted to him. In this example, someone helped me to get a job, so I feel like I owe this other person something. That means I want to give something back to this other person. Maybe do something nice or help him get a job. And finally, we have the phrasal verb go on. Go on means to continue. In the reading, we said about 66% of high school graduates go on to post-secondary education or higher education. That means when they're done with high school, they continue their education. In our second example, it says he never stops talking, he just goes on and on. That means he just keeps talking, he continues. And our last example says, should we stop working or go on? So remember that go is an irregular verb, our past tense is went, and our past participle is gone. So that's our vocabulary for class 14. To practice and really learn this new vocabulary, you should write a sentence using each new vocabulary word. You could also summarize the week's reading in 1 to 2 sentences. And then you could write a paragraph to answer the following questions. Would you like to go to college? Why or why not? If so, means if yes, what would you like to study? And what would you prefer to attend, a public school or a private school, and why? So if you're enjoying these free lessons, please like, comment, and subscribe. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.